lowercase m, capital G, M like mom, capital G, lowercase w, lowercase x. Should be good.
Is it the same dot?
Yeah.
Okay.
99.99% sure, but just so just in case. Yeah. Planetary Sources regards open borders between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ACL for Human Migration, Forbes Dictionary, the object or purpose requirements very much to neighbor ask for right and authority. Human migration means national geographic 7 to movement people from one place to another, resolve before cold agendas of formal resolution, AWS and goal introduced to formal resolution, resolve justice is legal, CLS justice resigned to justice should be according to the benefit of the law is applied, counter solves the advocate, I said open borders that creates an easy avenue for terrorism, can't read this in terms of what it sees this we don't agree with, simply just presented a CSA mark cards 18, you could just insert the card later, framer. The meta ethic is moral natural, so non-natural moral facts are basically inaccessible. The top of 7 all physical effects do not cause knowledge is mediated by the physical system facts and not influence of physical harnessing. How we get knowledge of a juice injection first at cyber code. When we are looking at red, we have evidence that things red food, everything things look red, we can never get evidence things were red food, we never decide we will get evidence things were good and how to develop concept value, the absence of experience, we don't lack capacity to make judgments. If an intersection can bridge the after an actual facts and moral truth and destiny, simple to observe and applicate intersect, identify redness as a good property of apples. Simply when I feel pleasure, I can introspect and identify goodness as an intrinsic property of pleasure, and pain are intrinsic value, disvalue, everything else regresses that robustly or sense of blah blah blah. 18 pleasure defines word reason why similar what you can do theories that use detailed variant analysis, evolution, to develop organisms, result of competition, wars that increase fitness, food streaks, mates, and offspring rewarding, brain reaches, body like the pleasure of the opposite cortex neural circuits that are very streets, and rotation response to the reduction of dopamine, media what motivates people, Darwinian dilemma, moral beliefs, changes we love, which means that either moral facts change, which contributes moral wisdom, or evolution leads us to moral truths, which is impossible since evolution does not track morality, hedonism solves as we interpret our survival. We use the same part of our brain that identifies moral irrelevance, which is evolutionary advantage. Necessary is consistent with hedonistic act utilitarianism. One is no intent force that distinction for states as you know, because pick and choose them enforcing concepts of fate responsibility. The policy of the global must be undertaken. Will allocation cannot behind anti-enforcing governments have responsibilities. Distinction is innovation responsibility. 2 it's all frameworks collapse if we followed new rules of another framework. We are happy with the results of that framework. We change the framework, which means everything else devolves into consequential. 3rd is no active mission distinction. Making decisions that always requires a trade-off between 2 different options. Makes a distinction impossible to guide action. 5th is action that governs society since every policy benefits some and harms other, which means psychiatry. 5th action. 6 is every framework cares about consequences. The consequences would be initially bad. If Kant retroactively saw that following his moral theory killed a bunch of people, he would say that's a bad idea because killing is bad. If something causes death, it would also be bad. Something's arbitrary. It's equal solves by making sure everyone's paid a pleasure. It's valid the same. Where frameworks like Kant would allow inequalities based on principle, they're allowed to unfair for some people with other, i.e. taxes would be bad. Allow rich people to hoard wealth, and therefore result in the preference of rich over poor, because poor would have the 8th is collapse. So you can only know the intent of something based on the consequence. I.e. if I rarely show a gun and I kill someone, I can only know the intent was to kill because that's what happened. We evaluate the cost of killing someone because even means it, which it means it outweighs. Because calculate, I did not think everything because everything collapses outweighs. And when we outweigh and impact calculus 16 outweighs. And in classical 14, we have a reason for extremely high safety to the 10 of 14 issues of reversal of the time of literary evidence, how the extinction we did. We should know something about people positive. Kant indict fail when it's ethics and they indict everything is the use of events to understand how ethics work. Means reciprocity or dead sacred and 2 was you have to answer all of the access topics where they only have to win one layer. The advantage is centrality, complex situations of marriage, limits, limited mobility, A sound states, limits interregional labor markets, code D16, AC6, just for AC region of free movement, goods and services, labor and capital, free movement, lives with high facts, and cohesive framework, attention policies, impede labor mobility, visa standards, not uniform, restriction labor policy, shortages, benefit for the labor, other AC states, establishing common guidelines, supports the growth of businesses and sectors that build a workforce and interconnectivity, and regional frameworks that started driven by AC key, unity, leadership, integration, key to centrality, the team distinction, and causality, tools of the ASAP, with the idea that ASAP is the leader of driver role, centrality, jobs to cohesive, coherent, economy process, ASAP foundations, our credibility, drawing centrality for internal cognizance, next steps to running the community ability alignment of regional instruments will help solidify centrality, efforts to ensure that centrality is all practice, and ASAP centrality is key to inclusive transparent, rules based order themselves, ASAP conflicts is huge, 22, the overall agent centrality is codified, and privacy driver, the relation to cooperation, strategy is crucial to open transparent, inclusive rules based, regional architecture, ASAP has been more effective than any other for managing potential conflicts, ability to regional security, ability to the declaration of the conduct of parties, centrality is key to advantage potential conflict, U.S. and China territory disputes that we claim by ASAP intervention, host the most meaningful official multilateral security force, a strong ASAP is the only one to come to the order to mediator power of the world. Asia war escalate that outweighs us getting 17 Asia is the most militarization, there were 7 largest militaries all around Asia of the 7-6 are nuclear powers for foundations led by increased militarization, territory disputes, and actions of regional security structure, different military arsenals, Asia plus increased more ability to use military force, can create for to happen from this calculation of misuse of military power causes last the large scale military conflict conflict. A small clash can lead to a large-scale war. The second advantage is irregular migration. It supports transnational organized crime groups. Border controls are the root cause of shore hire. One thing, organized crime hire, migration pressures, cost of restrictions and immigration, and led to illegal migrant found in the trafficking houses through Asia Pacific, and exercises that earn billion migrant trafficking connections, drug criminal organizations use new market opportunities, criminal activities, they stand crime groups, they use transportation for the people and narcotics organizations, plan exploitation in the labor market. It is reverse causal strength border controls force migrants in the hands of third-party syndicates and constitutes a major revenue miller about by certain key forces drives people to migrate. States will never succeed attempts to control migration restricting regimes that already clandestine migration service lead to the border surveillance. Migrants seek out third-party migration to Asia, facilitated by third parties. Formal migration slower, expensive migration is most susceptible to trafficking, smuggling, funds to organized crime and terrorism. That's 522. Migrant smuggling generates proceeds criminal networks drive to demand for smuggling proceeds stability. Migrants smugglers use third parties to launder. Migrants pay in cash out of use criminal activity. Migrant smuggling outsourcing money flows across borderly between financing smuggling, trade sponsoring groups. Facilitates smuggling. Southeast Asia organized crime puts money in the hands of terrorist groups. The organized crime sustains the direction of the subterfuge OG. Southeast Asian groups such as G, MGH, employ terrorist behavior. Linkages include the Golden Triangle, the largest opium producing world drug profits get funneled into insurgents in Northeast India. That is the 20 crime dominated drug trafficking. Indian migrant particular prominent underground trafficking, drug violence, and hiding such drug trade along with the border zones of the Golden. So they market India's Northeast and Northeast cities and searching to find out Southeast Asian markets. Supply weapon and cocaine trade is a major source of revenue. Starting to control trafficking transnational networks are now supported by armed militants and Al Qaeda forces with the northern Indian insurgents to strike critically vulnerable nuclear facilities. Attacks are labeled Pakistan, escalates to nuclear war. Al Qaeda to acquire nuclear weapons, weapon terrorism, communication and command service, Indian government, terrorists would acquire nuclear facilities to be easy target. Al Qaeda draws hands with insurgent networks. Attacks that nuclear facilities are executed under one air theory and one theory. Actually, just one air theory is legitimate. Setting us means infinity strong committee committee uses a high state one issue to make it on the try trade off and go for theory something to RBI 6 minute. Means you refers to me every time purpose of presumption for it's legitimate military purpose of facility presumption if we read it. It justifies three other ways to not be military by moral and usual actions to the probation. We have just prove an obligation to these statements to true and children of policy that he told me it's no Karan, you would believe me, negation theory and negation recently the absence of existing obligation did not exist. The dictionary common law excluded motives something to all false. It must be true, which is the same thing as not prohibited. It must be obligatory. Purpose is the same as obligatory. Also, for the second advantage, those are from a Mark doc. I can send the original cards just so I'd at least use these 77 evidence ethics, but yeah.
I don't know, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
You're saying?
Yeah. You want it, right?
Okay.
No, okay, he doesn't care. I guess
Okay.
judges want or okay.
Just wait. You're saying can you just send what you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good for cause if you don't care about it.
It's
Okay.
God damn.
Like you don't have to take out what you didn't read, but like.
No, I think you're misunderstanding. I just think that those cards are from a copy pasted incorrectly, so just for evidence ethics. I'm
Yeah,
just
so
gonna
there
put
are
stuff.
parts of the cards
Yeah.
that aren't fully. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm just saying you should see the card. You don't have to like take out analytics. You don't read anything.
Yeah.
There's space over here, by the way, too. If people don't want to like crowd on the floor.
There's so much space over here.
I think I'm gonna keep walking.
It's at the top. It's called Mark, question mark. Yeah. Just those cards. Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess on the centrality advantage, like what's the time frame for when like these like institutions are like strong enough or have like enough cooperation to the point where they're able to solve these threats?
I don't think I can give you a time frame. I think it's just a question of militarization that is currently the gating evidence into Christ. Why sort of increasing militarization is inputting more ability for the countries to escalate, tensions will rise, more inflammatory politics, and more miscalculation of aggressive postures. The affirmative is the only way to resolve those things, which in all inevitably should be triggered instantly. I cannot give you an exact date, but I do think that gating evidence is quite specific. A uniqueness of global military spending, militarization is all increased, and specifically the ASEAN
The Blum evidence, it seems to
Which
only
evidence?
have the Blum evidence.
Oh, yeah.
It seems to only have a theory of pleasure. Where does it outline that pain is bad? This just seems to say pleasure is good.
Yeah, so blowing
I just want you to point me to a line in the card that says
Okay.
that pain is bad.
Okay, I think I can control F it later, but based on my understanding of the dilemma evidence, it says that pleasure is a reward system, and the absence of that reward is what also motivates us too. It talks about the absence of reward, the absence of those pleasures, i.e., the limbic system wants to go for pleasure, and sometimes when we do not have that pleasure, we
Yeah, that just seems
have
to
those
suggest
things.
like my like pleasure individually is good. Where does it say like we should care about pain or others' pain?
Well, that's a different question about other people. Do you want me to answer that? Or is
But like
it
this
still
doesn't
about
even
the
seem to
dilemma?
isolate that like pain is bad.
I think it does isolate that pain is bad because it proves that it's an intrinsic part of our value or disvalue. What we value is pleasure. What we disvalue is the absence of pleasure or things that corroborate to a lack of pleasure, which is what the definition of
That's
pain
fine.
is.
The serum court evidence seems to just define induction. Where does it say that this comes first?
The induction evidence, okay, the induction evidence just, I don't know what like first means in the context, but it just says we should use induction because we cannot make moral values without induction, which means in the concept of a moral framework debate, induction must come first because that's how we derive moral
Have
values.
you heard epistemic modesty argument in the 1AC?
We have not made just the tagline quote epistemic modesty.
But
as
could
debated.
anything in the 1AC be used to justify epistemic modesty?
Well, there's things that can be used comparisons about like framing risk about util versus other frameworks, things like that. But like, there's not going to be explicitly like probability times magnitude that definition of epistemic modesty. There's framing that I can point you to, but that is different.
Okay. Then I guess you only got to the D point on the interview, right? Nothing below.
I got to the D point.
Yeah. Okay. Then on the Darwinian, yeah, just explain the Darwinian dilemma.
Yeah, so the Darwinian dilemma is sort of the thing that there's two things. Either moral beliefs shift as we evolve, but that's not true because there's absolute moral truths. That's what moral realism says. Or that as we evolve, we evolve to moral truth, but that isn't true because evolution doesn't track morality. But when we sort of introspect for pain and for pleasure, i.e., when animals are coming back at us, when we're sort of evolving, we realize that it's bad. That same part of the brain identifies the moral relevance of actions, i.e., we should help someone because my tribe member is being mauled by a bear right now. When we were like thousands of years ago, we fear that there's a moral obligation to resolve those pain and pleasure, which means that we resolve the Darwinian dilemma, but no other framework can.
Okay, that's good. Two then case is gonna be a little weird. First, like line by lining the underview, or wait, so there's like an underview section that'll be there. Then like the framework line by line, the advantage, and then I'll read more stuff on the framework as time allows.
The underview, the framework, the advantages.
Yeah, underview the framework, the advantage, and then back to the framework. Should be sent.
I'm ready.
First off, eating is a clause, ethical egos, immediate pleasure, intrinsic good, and motivating us both other subjects, pleasures, also intrinsically good. One on second, saying that X is good for me doesn't tell X is good for everybody. Two souls doesn't we can't verify other humans are also experiential subjects or just psychological three dependency, even if pleasure is good for everyone. They haven't learned why. I'm not agent has an obligation to any other. Outweighs none of their metaphysical justifications or act specific. Moral egoism means relativism, which they can't solve, and ethical egoism means their framework is flawed. One should be simply, even if we know what is ethical, there's no reason we're about ethical behavior. Two application, even if we agree knows what is ethical, then we'll still do the best way to maximize ethical outcomes. And the solution is solved with Senator Moral Judgment Williams. Just even if we agree, solve religion, not necessarily agree with how to react to the conflict out of results for you to calculate sustainability of resolve objectives and professional. This is skepticism that combined into solution for politics and state of nature. The authorities are right to decide on where to solve the contested truths to provide the authoritative criteria for what is remove people from understanding ethical order and anarchy through opinions differ just and not just to operate. Although they must control language education rather than coercion and derivative extent of these political decisions into conflict and outweighs their usual one self-solving state nature because violence occurs over attempts to create to be the creator of meaning solved by being eliminating all disagreements is always under usual of the state of nature set the definition of the epitome of pain that outweighs the abduction of their usual true motivating they can explain why we don't follow it answer this negating we're actually motivated by utilitarian obligations and the scope would be the best state of affairs and B hijacks sexual career even if util is true we can't ever use it because we fear for our bodily security negate justice doesn't require anything of the sovereign having a sovereign with unlimited authority is a precondition of justice existing in the first place and next up we're hijacking utilitarianism consequentialism means determinism is true one induction X action leads to Y result and X action must be influenced by prior action which means the causal change of events structure my action rather than my will and two focus on N6 necessity determinism because scientific models assume X will have an imply anything else triggered from ability 3 psychology neuroscience has demonstrated that original cognition is demonstrated deterministic weak provide a counter study you shouldn't trust the word of a high schooler about neuroscience because psychology neuroscience is demonstrated conscious identity or determinism pre-conscious determinism opens up avenues of influence ability to process to be assumed to be under our control with this assumption is mistaken active in the flow that negates one action of the predetermined, which means they are culpable for actions. We don't take the case under view 1 and then negative outweighs after use 1 infinite prep time before round to front line 2 to 2 error just psychology 2 3 really would speak first and last and 4 they have infinite preps and othering the 1 error ability on 1 error shells the 1 and 3 is very fast the 2 error against the line of 2 error new answers that never respond to 2 and drop the argument on 1 error shells the ability 20 seconds shells 2 error but I have to split my time and can't prevent 2 hours spent which is judge intervention in orbit and 1 error 3 1 error being able to spend 20 seconds on the shelf still win force the 2 and to allocate at least 230 on the shelf which means orbit check back times you and no new 1 error pair images 1 error pair images would anyone see theoretical to be introducing the apple for them to be more recently tested and presumption purposes is definitionally the lack of an obligation prohibition you can be obligated if you lack an obligation to disprove the resolution these statements are more false or true if I told you second proof something false in infinite ways but only true and only one that always on probability C require an active reason for leave so that's why arguments need warrants and require means obligation wherever weapons no data to be obliged and I'll do the line by line now the permissibility step 1 the freeze action 1 is missed about we can do it it's just there's no obligation they have to prove an obligation this is the required definition of trivialism stuff I don't believe your name also statements are equally more false and true the negation theory stuff the group this in the D point that it does deny the obligation because trichotomy there's a trichotomy prohibition obligation permissibility and proving one disproves the other two the framework the framework the line by line one on induction first one this is just describes deduction second it's not necessary we can arrive at truth 2 deduction the phenomenon introspection is based on intuitions those fail away they're unverifiable what is intuitive to one person is different from another so it means that some people have raised their contradictory intentions intuitions making ethics abhorrent or impossible the Blum evidence one doesn't have a theory of pain which means it definitely just collapses to egoism in the first place so they weren't able to point you to a line in the card the Darwinian dilemma Hobbes hijacks Blum because they both justify individual hedonism only sovereign ensure the total binding framework that justifies helping other people's pleasure no I have all various collapse step every more proves your framework collapses all the hijacks the no activation distinction we're not reliant on it which means it doesn't matter the activist stuff is just non-unique. My argument is specific to the sovereign in the first. It's a 6 point. And intended cause was subjective. Hitler could think that he was that he could intended the Holocaust, or he could have intended something better. Maybe he said he could intend something better. Which he intended the Holocaust, which means that the concept we can hold him culpable for. Which means that these two things are sort of they go hand in hand. The arbitrariness argument is wrong. So the sovereign solves because they're able to make clear rules. That's the entire argument. That's entirely like the Williams evidence that extinction outweighs step 1 is circular. Use the consequence of future justify the consequent generations to justify extinction first. To justify consequentialism in and of itself. Second, it's more like justifies doing anything the larger risk of solving extinction, i.e. 10 hate crimes because of 0.001% risk of extinction. Third is that you use reject that make honesty, move kills fill it because the fact that we only debate contentions and also maximize the wrong chance of an action under one framework and there's no moral uncertainty. If I'm winning the framework to make the calculation, yes, we get access to that we were only indicting you so that they don't indict everything else. And second is that you get reciprocal because you can make them to the advantage. Multi-line credibility, gaps in causes shifts in many laterals of Hagon, general one side on the sidelines, the difference, UAE, driving durable letters, the trend, the partnership with the future investment in food personally forms of technology encouraged by fragmentation of the world order, multilaterals become more significant, work on a specific agenda, smaller groups of ways, collecting decision-making, larger organizations, multilateral organizations are unable to coordinate some countries, each makes a short partition, informal breakthrough, together, future states, practical, adaptable, the multilateral institutions must cater to more countries, slowing down decision-making, designed to enhance future structural cooperation, voting geopolitical competition, multilaterals to be geographically non-congruous, unlike regional groups such as ASEAN, minilateralism against force groups ensure countries don't exploit their resources, cut the carded resources, and that's straight terms. The after every reason global cooperation is good as a reason minilateralism better at mobilizing action over multilateralism fails. 9 humanity must win a sequence of accommodation nuclear ability to terrorism pandemic street. The international collaboration is not happening when a large number of countries agreed to by major international accord that the preparedness multi-country collaboration is orbital multilateral tests have been heavily failed to commitments not honored. The represents the flawed obsession with multilateralism dependent in favor of minilateralism smarter with more targeted perceiving to with small possible number of countries need to have the largest possible impact trade climate change. Beginning part of the international gridlock and agreements reached by the small numbers. The generally need to generate real solution to effects of minilateral capitalism with ceiling that characterizes the multilateralism and that the very state of nature of multilateralism is its own downfall. For American alternatives is solve external global threats of the 913. Globalization is intertwined the number of problems cannot be solved by one country as organized by commitments and capacity to coordinate. Two problems of global politics of solving our localized number of interests and increasing opportunities for consensus and coercive action. Strong emerging powers and coalitions and non-governmental players depending on today why global and multilateral agreements have become rare. International summits have yielded meager results on trade liberalization and warming of private hijacks, financial crisis, overfishing, exploitation, nuclear predation, wanting for wars, unilateral small number of countries necessary, and that is a conceptual trade opportunity includes formalism and multilateralism. That's exclusive but necessary to be of nature. Multilateralism for 12 to 22 many countries result of difficulty and consensus based in multiculturalism that are informed, flexible, functional number of multilateral forms as spikes in unilateralism logically point to the lesser number of participants rather than multilateralism basic feature relative exclusivity rigid contrary to inclusive approach to multilateralism. Cut the card approach to multilateralism. Concede the internal legal, which is a nuclear. We'll concede the internal legal. The al-Qaeda hold the line on one error extrapolation. The actual code is very little on what actually happens, but it's like one line about codified nutrient and retaliation. In the case of a strike, every portion is creatively cut to be about the phenomenon about two al qaeda state actions. The fact that they terrorists and the initial usage of nuclear device, not about what happens when a crew bomb goes up when the vulnerable substance retaliation scenario. You should read the cardinals very context very closely. Also, the destructive people just go somewhere else. There's the diversification is uniquely true because the fact that there's always sort of different poppy seeds and marijuana producers there's no reason for the absence to solve. They don't have a risk cause of war and with Indian policymakers risk reaching experience with the whole beginning of spark military retaliation like 15 the military actions for symbolic rather than substantive Indian policymakers acceptable as symbolic needs of work. Risk of these experience reason policy have a high degree of risk aversion and are likely to reaction not only as military capability you can bring far less than analysts and about many military modernization. Appreciate I caught the card to appreciate the framework. Skip all the hijacks ones that over each type of pleasures quality literature so again quantify compare relations with the answers calculations to any actions permissible under each doesn't condemn actions but then states the possibility that action can be justified through desirability circular. You find morality based on what desirability that notes which desirability stuff what's moral rejects circular agreements are logically invalid. 4 there's no bright line when consequences and ends will trigger more ends and 5 states don't always say doesn't interest sources have different pleasure based on our own experience so it's always changing. Also in a hard dog.
Appreciate that.
It's opening. Let's delete the old one. Good.
Yeah.
What's the link to multilateral bad?
What do you mean?
Why is the advocate for multilateralism?
Oh, that's like the entirety of the centrality advantage.
Why? The centrality advantage just says a rules-based order for disputes mechanisms.
Yeah, it's based off of cooperation with other nations.
Cooperation is the same thing as
Sort of like evidence
multilateralism.
is like very specific to multilateralism.
Where does our evidence ever say multilateralism? It just says a regional architecture. It seems like we are minilateralism according to your evidence.
No, your evidence is specific to like ASEAN cooperating internationally.
No, it's ASEAN settling disputes within Asia, the Asia Pacific region. I'm confused. It's about territorial disputes like in Asia Pacific, like those in the South China Sea, China, Vietnam, China, Philippines. What is the link? No link. All right, I'm not going to answer it then. That was cross-X. All right, cool. Let's talk about the hedonism. Or not heated. Actually, the Hobbes are there any permissibility triggers that you can make if I concede Hobbes?
If you concede Hobbes?
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you concede Hobbes, I can still go for the other hijack.
Like determinism?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, they hijack at different points.
Okay, cool.
You
Why?
just have to weigh between them. Like, they hijack different parts of the syllogism.
Okay, cool. What are the permissibility triggers within the Hobbes NC?
I mean, like, we would say that, like, largely most of these arguments, like solipsism, can trigger permissibility, non sequitur also can trigger permissibility. Like, I think just about every justification can.
Okay, cool. On the framework, you said extinction is morally repugnant. How is the sovereign letting to do anything they can not morally repugnant? Like the sovereign in Nazi
The
Germany.
people consent to the sovereign.
So the people in Nazi Germany consented, and therefore it's their fault that genocide
That's not a
happened.
legitimate sovereign.
So what constitutes legitimate sovereign? And how do
They
we
have to
establish
set up
one?
a government. It's based off like a social contract.
So why is Nazi Germany not so legitimate?
Jews didn't consent to that government.
Okay, what about the Germans in it? Like, I'm confused. Like, so why? How do you know they did consent? Like, what is the arbitrariness for consent? How can you tell other people what to consent? Or even a hypothetical world, what it differentiates
I
between
mean, people
someone
were
not
trying to
like.
escape. So also like
So if someone does not like the government, that means it's illegitimate.
no, it just means that they can opt out of that government.
So people can opt out of the sovereign. How is that ethically
They
binding?
would have to leave. Like they would have to like leave that country.
So Nazi Germany can still exist. They just have to get out. That is what the
If
framework
people-
would defend.
The framework says that we.
And you said extinction is more Republican.
But yeah, but we didn't like make it an independent voting issue.
Okay, cool. The determinism. Why does Utah care about determinism? It seems like even if it's predetermined, something could be still bad. All right, let's go. Let me check a simple items. Order will be the advantage, the util stuff. On util, it's like the overview they read, the last part of the 1 and C will be at the top of the util stuff, and then the line, and then the option order.
Advantage 1, advantage 2.
Yeah, like just advantage one. Yeah. Let me just.
Sorry?
Do you need the order again? Okay, cool. The advantage, then the framework debate, the overview at the top of the 1 and C, the end of the 1 and C is what we'll start off with, then the line to line, and then the option order. A doc has been sent.
advantage, framework starting at the bottom, then line by line, then the offset.
Yep. Everyone good?
Yeah. Cool.
Cross-tech spotted nobly to the impactor to extend the first advantage of border creates economy integration with nation states, creates Asian centrality, spills over to rule-based order that solves Asian conflicts through intervention, equals says has proves global power diplomacy, otherwise war in Asia escalates. That goes global. The second advantage conceded all the defense and no retaliation. There was no offense other than overview. One is predictions and probability. Solve all these purpose items. We only should defend the advantage, not all of the ethical conclusions, which is something that's only specific to the affirmative. Desirability is not circular. We know it is desirable based on our intuitive nature and physical facts of the world, which will get off the line. But like util does condemn actions because they would cause infinite pain or suffering, which means it is not only necessarily personal. They say different types of pleasure. There is not. Death forecloses the worst. Death is the worst evil. It forecloses all the other types of pleasure, which means even if there's other types of pleasure, death is still a bad. They say states don't know what citizens' interests are. No, we would aggregate bodyguards. It doesn't matter individual interests, but then death is the worst evil, which is sort of a conceded mechanism from the one. You see the line by line proper one is they conceded the meta ethic, which would frame this entire debate. The non-natural moral facts are epistemically inaccessible, which means you should only factor your acts through moral naturalism, which means things like language, ethical egoism, and all of the Hobbesiancy are not possible because we should only think in the physical system. Physical systems also means that the Hobbesiancy collapses because everything is made up of physical systems, which are the consequences of the Hobbesiancy. The sound record evidence conceded the war with an induction is first. If we only know things are valuable because of the previous value in the first place, they just say deduction can solve. There was not a warrant in the limelight. The one to see on the framework limelight was incredibly, but you should hold the line. You should have Pascal's wager and all permissibility triggers. So 1% of condemning everyone to extinction if it is suffering is morally warranted. Condemning just to say that we should not do any action which allows infinite slavery and infinite racism and things that happen because we would just say, oh, we don't care. No, we don't care. They say intuitions are abhorrent. No, intuition not abhorrent because we defend pain and pleasure, not other intuitional like racist intuitions because those are transformed by society, but not intuitively about humans. I.e., there's no racism when you put your hand on a hot stove. You say the blunt evidence will extend it right here. Pain and pleasure are intrinsically valuable. We put our hand on a hot stove, we usually take away because it is painful. They say the card doesn't have a theory of pain, which claps the egoism. That is not a response. The absence of pleasure is a good enough warrant that it's a reward system. Scientific concludes that we are motivated by pleasure, and the absence of pleasure is something that we are harmed by, which proves that our framework is binding. Extinction weighs on moral uncertainty. There's the 1% risk of that. There's a value to life. You should default to save future generations because we can decide on our ethics. We are uncertain. A 45-minute debate round is not going to resolve that, but we should default to having to be alive to resolve those ethics. It's not circular because it's about our ethical approach to ethics. It's debate about debate. It's risk calculus. It's not epistemic modesty. It's not extinction. It's not morally repellent. Conceded advantage, which means our things are true. All the other evidence limelights are not permissibility checkers. They're contextual to our warrants, which means they cannot go further than independent reasons. Hobbes. Top level, their framework says the sovereign can do whatever they please. So police brutality, oppression, the Holocaust would all be good things. The sovereign wills them. It's a bitter reason vote that makes debates unsafe, like just make lives that oppressed debater cannot psychologically contest. If they say they are bad, it just collapses into utilitarianism because the only reason about it is the consequence of bad non sequitur. We claim that every human is biologically wider as a circus that's conceded the blood and solve system. Pascal's wager is caused by that, and there's no impact. This pleasure is good for me. Takes out the hominency because the sovereign doesn't exist. Dependency, we made a claim about our moral obligations that derive from our pleasures. Grants and pleasure to save lives. And governments have rights to existence. Agency governments are agents, otherwise they would fail. Application become a solution via aggregation. One is if first of all agents have different viewpoints that motivate them, there's no way the sovereign can even form in the first place. Two, if the sovereign is actually formed, define the meaning, that would mean exclusion, which means violence is inevitable. It takes out the purpose of the first place, and the sovereign may have ultimate authority. We can't assert any framework of places. It's certainly normally correct framework, which is the one you see relativism. No one follows. That's above. Linguistic judges make decisions with it here. We had cross-sex languages is understandable. The hijack we need to live before we can feel fear. The Hobbes actually skip that part. Determinism really quickly. Util solves it equates moral rightness with desirability. Desirability does not require free will condition. A volcano erupting decreases utility. It is undesirable. A volcano does not have free will. It does not negate on the topic. There are no moral obligations. Just that there is a requirement to do the affirmative concede. Our representation of justice is just to do something or for something, which always effectively conceded from the one. You see, all their negates reasons are just external permissibility triggers. Hobbes affirms Mendoza 11 non-citizens should be afforded constitutional protections. Removing them from the state of exceptions will not undermine sovereignty, but will mean more consistent on the possibility of state of nature. The determinism framework should be its question. Utilitarianism doesn't care about free will.
What are the responses to determinism?
Utilitarianism does not care about the free will. If a volcano erupts, even if it's predetermined, it's still negative utility and would cause harm, which means we are not more culpable. Determinism does not negate on the topic. Consider a definition of justice. And everything else is permissibility triggers, which we said we shouldn't evaluate. And desirability does not require.
No permissibility triggers.
The Pascal's wager, morally abhorrent stuff. And then desirability does not require free will condition. We were the only ones that talk about desirability.
No permissibility affirms, right?
No.
These things util solve desirability, right?
Determinism just like util does not care about whether we have free will, culpable for action.
So it's just
all
the same
util.
argument? That same argument.
Okay, wait.
You said, like,
No, what are you clarifying?
Util solves desirability, you said something like that.
It's just util solves. It is what util is what we do is desirable. That was also on case when we answered your desirability arguments, and then we said desirability does not require free will condition.
Okay. Did you extend epistemic modesty or extinctionality?
I did extend extinctionalities.
What?
I did.
Alright, cool. Order is the IVI, and then the determinants minor.
Yeah, I conceded dropped an argument on 1AR3 and as well as reasonability. You should hold them to the right line of you actively were justified. We never said that slavery is uniquely, or the sort of the Holocaust was uniquely legitimate or justified. We just said that if people consented, we just said that it was the wrong state of nature because the fact that people didn't consent to that government in the first place. We said we never justified it in the first place, which means the fact that it would never justify things like brutalities because the fact that people would not be able to consent into that government. Either way, we're not going for hospitals that drop the argument. Should solve on all this other offense. Either way, the people have distinction. And what I've said in this round doesn't affect any outside round of violence, which means that there's no actual impact of this. They haven't justified why reps first or why accessibility matters. Second is that Williams' evidence is really specific. It talks about how if it threatens the ability to survive as a state of nature or something, then it is legitimate, which means that if sort of the state is threatening people's ability to survive, then that means that it's not illegitimate sovereign. Also, the Holocaust and fascism recreate the state of nature, which means that it would be illegitimate because the fact that people are sort of subjugated to positions of below like it's sort of governed and don't have access to rights in the first place, which means that that's definitely illegitimate. Also, if we're reading this as a hijack, which means that we're just saying it's a logical conclusion of your framework. You shouldn't hold us culpable. You initiated that debate, but also since the fact that you've disproven the link means that this just goes away. Fact is their framework is also problematic. You definitely justifies things like slavery because of the fact that if it were to allow for more pleasure than pain, which means that these sorts of outcomes, even if you don't have to defend them, they literally said this argument whenever they were responding to like some of our reasons for it's morally wrong. They're like, oh, you should only hold us culpable for what we actively justified, which means that otherwise they would just take out their framework too.
The term is no hijack.
Exit determinism from top levels like culpability is a prerequisite to being able to evaluate any sort of any ethical standard. Ones that there's no way for us to determine who's morally wrong in a sense where there's no culpability because the fact that there's no way for us to assign what is ethical, which is there's also the point that there's no way for us to hold people accountable or take a course of action because there's no way for us to know whether or not something we could be held culpable, which means that there's always an incentive to the most immoral things in the first place, which is that it takes out the entirety of their framework. Like, they extended the determinism warrants. They didn't contest any of the actual links to it. They just said that we solve determinism or that they don't care. Extend the psychology argument. It was just straight up conceded uniquely proven that the fact that brain synapses are always predetermined and there's always an instance where a brain synapse will determine what you're about to do before you do, which means that there's sort of a predetermined action because the fact that there's always sort of a signal sent before it, which means that it proves it's deterministic. And the fact that everything is predetermined, which means there's no way for you to hold people culpable because the fact that every state of affair has already been determined means that it's out of your head and there's no sort of free will, which they definitely outweighs one of the neuroscience definitely comes first from sort of naturalism and hijacks the entirety of their blunt justification because what is pleasurable and what is painful is sort of predetermined for everybody in the first place because it takes out all their opposites and there's no way for you to determine what is morally wrong or right because the fact that it's already set in place that also it definitely outweighs under a sort of naturalist paradigm as well. I'm also going to go for the induction argument that if action leads to y action, then it must be influenced by prior actions, which is sort of the causal chain of events. That's sort of quantum physics in and of itself. That you can't break these causal chains of events, which means that they have not indicted any of these arguments in the first place. They just like make these four like shitty arguments why you just reject permissibility treaty, which means that we just have to beat those back and you should automatically negate. Yes, this takes out all their opposites. It takes out extinction outweighs, but permissibility definitely negates. I'm going to extend the required definition. They straight up conceded that required means to be obliged. That was on the permissibility debate. That takes out their justice definition. One, it always on textuality because it's a question of what is actually needed to do. I.e., required is the verb in the resolution because it's actually what they have to prove or what they have to prove that states have to do or that the justice requires or that justice has to do, which means that it's sort of a quantifier for justice in the first place, which means it definitely comes first. And then also the fact is that they just didn't contextualize or do any weighing, which means that we should get access to neutron response to be able to sort of resolve this in the first place. They also reject neutron weighing on this issue because the fact that they just they would give 3 minutes to stand back and prefer 2 hour weighing because where there's 6 minute 2 hour 2 hour so 2 hours were held to a higher standard of warranty. Their justice definition definitely doesn't matter. Our argument is definitely from the most common web dictionary definition and also the first result on Google, which means always on common usage and definition comes first. So permissibility negates. Their response is proper. They say Utah solves desirability, but one, yes, the Utah does care about things. Utah does care about things like the free will in the first place. Because in order for you to act on desires, you need to will that. Otherwise, this is literally just incoherent. Saying that you can just act on your desires and not have to will it. This just makes no sense. In order for you to want to act on those desires in the first place, or even feel those desires, you need some sort of will. And those will actually sort of the will in and of itself motivates the desires, which means that definitely hijacks because the only things you desire are based on sort of what your will is or what your intent is or what you like pursue, which means that it definitely comes prior. Also, these two things are definitely intertwined, which means that if we're proving that there's no free will and there's definitely no way for you to have to find what is desirable in the first place. You say that Utah doesn't care about free will. It's not a question of your framework, but rather what it justifies absent sort of free will. Ethics is uniquely impossible. It also just proves your framework collapses skepticism. Negative outcomes can't assign culpability. That's a prerequisite to framing ethics in the first place, which is all we've done above. You just said like, oh, we only care about outcomes, but outcomes insofar as you only care about outcomes. You have to like sort of hold people culpable for things. Like i.e. under a utilitarian paradigm, if I were to like I don't know stab Karan right now, Utah would sort of hold certain people culpable because I caused the end state of stabbing Karan. But if I don't have free will to do that, there's no way for you to hold me culpable, which means that culpability is sort of the impact filter or sort of a prerequisite to you being able to evaluate these arguments in the first place. The Pascal's wager argument wants to reject this. One is that you have no warrant for why free will exists, which is you definitely link, and there's a 0% risk. You have not warranted why free will uniquely exists. You've just literally conceded that doesn't matter under your framework, which means that there's 0% risk of these permissibility assurance being false in the first place. All the neuroscientific evidence and the fact that it's uniquely grounded in naturalism means that there's 100% risk. These arguments were just straight up conceded, which means that we all straight the link control skies of impact. The morally abhorrent stuff crossed by R of our response to the Hobbes stuff. It's a conclusion of your framework, which means they shouldn't be held culpable. You should be held culpable. You justified this starting point of this framework, and we just told you that this is the exact link and where it leads. You did not contest that link in the first place, which means it goes away.
The extinction outweighs stuff and like just like the case line by line.
None of their arguments were flagged as reasons why you should exclude determinism or why excludes permissibility in the first place. But permissibility definitely does matter under like sort of comparative world paradigm. Because absolutely, if there's no way for us to know who's winning office, and that means because we're trying to prohibition, obligation, permissibility, proving one disproves the other two, which means that there's no way for them to prove an active obligation, which means there's no way for them to compare between worlds. The extinction out waste stuff definitely doesn't take it out. One point is that there's no way for us to know, like, if we can't hold people culpable, there's no way for us to assign culpability or just to derive that extinction necessarily matters. Means the fact that there's no way for us to assign that like anything was anyone's will, which means that we can't determine whether or not the app we can't determine whether or not the app or like sort of the Halcyon and like sort of nuclear war is anyone's culpable for, which means that it takes it out. Also, is that we're triggering permissibility. All of their arguments are just based off of immoral obligation. We've just denied those in the first place. The future generations argument, we don't have an obligation to future generations. Also, their existence is predetermined, which means there's no interaction in the first place, which means there's no reason for us to do the plan. Also, second is they've just. I'm also going to say that the morally repugnant argument. If any of their arguments on why like moral repugnance matters, then Utah definitely justifies infinite hate crimes, because the fact that any marginal risk of extinction, i.e. 0.001% risk, definitely justifies it. Which means that if they can go for this morally abhorrent stuff on the permissibility triggers, that also takes out their framework in the first place, because you should just vote neg on permissibility.
Alright, my flow just like shut down, so can you go to the responses to the util solves?
Yeah. Shoot, 1 second. You didn't start prep, right?
No, I did.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Yeah, so you'll solve desirability. One, it does, like, your free will does matter. In order to act on your desires in the first place, you need some sort of will. Second was, it was like they're intertwined. If you were to deny the existence of free will, then there's no way for you to have desires. Then the util doesn't care about free will. One, it's not just a question of what your framework cares about, per se. It's about what it justifies. Absent free will, ethics writ large is impossible. That was like the top stuff at the framing. And then second is it just proves your framework collapses skep. Negative outcomes, if you can't assign culpability to them, then that means that you can never sort of condemn anything or derive like what is the correct ethical action. Pascal's wager stuff, one, rejected. You didn't actually make a warrant for why free will exists. You literally just conceded that you don't care about it, which means that there's 0% risk that ethics exists. And also, yeah,
That's all good.
then we made some stuff about the morally important things.
If I don't go for more than none of those reasons are reasons to drop the reading, right?
No, none of these were like dropped in the
Okay.
It's just a reason why we would reject your framework. Just voting on this.
Alright, cool. Just be advantage determinism. Determinism will have all the util stuff. Alright, cool. Is everyone good?
Conceded the first advantage of board's critical common integration nation states, great states, and centrality. This solves solves the militarization term of space that go global cause extinction. The framing issue is moral uncertainty about this issue is the question of whether you should be 1%. You conceded from the 1 year. It's a debate about debate. It's an ethics about ethical, which means it does not matter if I conceded free will, but it's a question that a 45-minute debate round would not be able to resolve whether util solves determinism or determinism solves util, or the hijack between them. What means that you should always reach the 1% risk of the future generations matter, because we can be alive in order to debate about the conclusion. To conclude a determinism utilitarianism is true to conclude if utilitarianism is true, which means all those arguments don't matter. But the framing issues I will just win are one argument against determinism because I spent 20 seconds on it because I just went for the true argument. Util solves it equates moral rightness with desirability. Desirability does not require a free will condition. A volcano erupting decreases utility is undesirable, but a volcano does not have free will. You should view this specificity about the advantage. We do not hold China morally accountable. We do not claim China is morally accountable for incursions in the South China Sea, but we would claim that militarized order and nuclear war would be bad because it condemns people to death. You conceded death is bad for close to infinite pain in the future, which means that your example about ASEAN, we wouldn't be able to hold people morally culpable. Does not matter because all we are doing is that saying being predetermined to go incurse in the SES does not mean that we should hold you accountable for the SES. We do not claim war crimes or sort of sanctions or anything, but rather the action or the consequences of them bad. We are not making an ethical conclusion or an ethical obligation about whether ethics should be, whether we should hold agents morally accountable. Conceded that we only care about governments, i.e. the states of affairs, which means we do not have to go about individual people or ethical obligations, but rather whether states are good or bad and their actions are good or bad. If I win this, it does not trigger permissibility because it's a question that because it does not mean that ethics or skepticism that happens because it just proves that under our framework, which is conceded utilitarianism or maximizing expectation of our way because pain and pleasure are intrinsically valuable, it does not matter if we do not have a free will because we can still claim actions as bad or not. The framing issues permissibility says that we cannot claim actions are bad or not. If I win, we can claim actions are bad or not, regardless of holding individual people culpable. We can still make conclusions about the consequence of the action and say that is bad because it forecloses pleasure, that is bad because it stops pain, etc., which is all the two-hour has to win the limelight proper. They say free will and desires are intertwined with free will or group those matter. Desires do not matter. We don't talk about individual desires. When we said desirability, we said the desirability of the affirmative happening, the desirability of an action happening. We only care about the desirability because of the utility of that action, which means the desire to do something. It's only about the end consequences of those things, which means moral culpability does not happen. You say justify ethics writ large. We do condemn actions, it's not through culpability, rather end states of actions. We would say China incursioning on the SES is morally bad because of the consequences of the action. It's not a question we would hold it morally culpable. They have not made a reason why holding China morally culpable does not matter, which means under a question, this debate is very easy. Util solves a volcano erupting, ASEAN specifically. We do not need to hold those arguments to be culpable. They have conceded that explanation. They have misunderstood our argument. It's rather that we only care about utility and the consequences, which means we can still claim things are bad or good, but rather just individual culpability is not something we are accountable for.